When the world around her grew quiet, Eleanor began to notice a different kind of silence. It wasn't the peaceful kind, the silence of early mornings or drifting snow. It was the heavy kind. The kind that hums in the walls of a house when laughter has long since left. Her days had become small. She'd wake before dawn, sit by the window with a cup of tea she never finished, and watch the light crawl across the kitchen tiles. The chair beneath her had grown familiar, too familiar. It was meant to rest on. Now it had become a place to stay. She used to dance. Long before her knees betrayed her, before the surgery and the cane, she taught young girls how to move with grace. She would say, every step has a story, every breath has rhythm. But lately, even breathing felt like a burden. Doctors told her to rest, and so she obeyed. Day after day, she sat. Until one morning, she realized she wasn't resting anymore. She was disappearing. There's a strange illusion that creeps in with age, the idea that stillness is safe. That motion is dangerous. That comfort is protection. But the truth is softer and more merciless. The body was never built for stillness. Every heartbeat, every blink, every thought in the mind is a kind of motion. To stop moving is to quietly stop speaking the body's native language. And when you stop speaking it long enough, the body forgets how to live. Eleanor didn't know that yet, but the day she found it out began like any other. The wind pushed through the curtains and sunlight spilled over the old oak floor. Her eyes wandered toward the corner of the room, to the chair near the window, the one she used to sit in when her husband was alive. Something about it caught her that morning, the light on the armrest, the way it seemed to invite her closer. She walked toward it slowly, fingers brushing against the fabric. And then, almost without thinking, she sat down, not to rest but to try. She placed her hands on her thighs and lifted her right knee just a few inches off the floor. Her leg trembled, pain rippled up her hip like a sharp memory, but in that flicker of effort, something ancient stirred. She lowered her leg, took a breath, and lifted the other. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't easy, but it was motion. In motion, no matter how small, is life whispering, "I'm still here." She began again the next day and the day after that, at first just 2 minutes, then 5. She called it the March of Memory, though no one else knew what she meant. Each lift of her knee became a reminder of the music she used to teach by, the rhythm she thought she'd lost. The body remembered, it always does. In that small, quiet room, something miraculous was happening. With each gentle movement, her blood began to flow easier. Her heart found its rhythm again, her breath deepened. The machine of life, long rusted by fear, began to hum softly back to order. One morning she raised her arms, slowly. Carefully, the sunlight touched her fingertips and her ribs expanded as if for the first time in years. It wasn't just a stretch, it was a prayer. Every inhale felt like forgiveness, every exhale a release. She remembered what it was to breathe, not just to survive, but to live, to fill her chest with air and gratitude. The more she moved, the more her mind began to awaken, not from sleep but from surrender. Because movement is not only the body's revival, it's the mind's resurrection. After weeks, she began another motion. While sitting tall, she lifted her right leg and held it straight, her foot hovering above the ground. Her thigh quivered, the muscles shaking in defiance. She smiled. Strength, she realized, isn't youth, it's conversation, a quiet exchange between the body and the will that refuses to give up. The next exercise came naturally. She twisted her torso, looking over her shoulder. The room turned with her, and her eyes fell on an old picture frame resting on the shelf. Her husband, smiling in his uniform, his hand on her waist during their wedding dance. She hadn't looked at that photo in months. Now, as she turned again to the other side, she felt her spine crack softly like a door opening. With every twist, time itself seemed to bend. Memories long sealed began to breathe again. And then the smallest motion of all. Her feet flat on the ground, she lifted her heels just a little, down and up again. Each rise sent blood through her calves, warmth spreading like sunlight beneath the skin. She did it again and again, slowly, rhythmically, the heart beneath the heel. A second pulse returning to life, 5 small movements, that's all, 5 gestures done with care, but through them, Eleanor found something greater than fitness. She found forgiveness for the years she'd spent afraid to try. Weeks turned into months. Her body changed not by size but by spirit. Her steps grew steadier. She began watering the garden again, cooking her own meals, calling her friends. Her knees still ached, her balance wasn't perfect, but her laughter returned, and with it, the sound that had been missing for so long, life. Sometimes, as she sat by the window in the evening light, she would whisper to herself, "It wasn't the pain that made me old. It was the fear of feeling it." And in that whisper was a truth most of us forget. We don't move because we're strong. We become strong because we move. Movement is not just a physical act, it's a declaration. A way of saying, "I'm still part of this world, even from a chair, especially from a chair." Science might call it circulation or neuroplasticity, the renewal of cells and pathways. But to Eleanor and to so many like her, it was simpler. It was remembering what it feels like to belong in one's own body again. The small flame inside her, once dim, began to glow brighter, not from medicine or miracles, but from motion. A gentle, daily promise to herself. To move even a little, and that promise changed everything. When her doctor saw her again, he said, "You're looking stronger, leaner." She smiled and replied, "I'm just talking to my body again." Because that's what movement really is, a conversation. Between breath and bone, between heart and hope, between who we are and who we still have time to become, there's something sacred in that, something deeply human. As the months passed, she no longer feared the mornings, she welcomed them. She'd open the window, feel the air on her skin, and begin her quiet ritual. The march, the reach, the lift, the twist, the rise, 5 gestures of gratitude, 5 conversations with life. And as she moved, she found peace, not in avoiding the passage of time, but in dancing with it. Each motion became a prayer of thanks, for lungs that still filled with air, for knees that still bent, for hands that still reached for light. Movement, she realized, is not about longevity. It's about belonging to the present, to yourself, to the pulse of life that still hums beneath your skin. If you listen closely, you could almost hear it, the quiet symphony of her being alive. The rhythm of her breath, the creak of the chair, the heartbeat beneath it all. Together they formed a kind of music, not loud, not perfect, but whole, and maybe that's the secret. Maybe we're not meant to chase youth, but to honor motion itself. Because movement, any movement, is how the soul remembers its still home. So, to anyone who has grown afraid of motion, who thinks stillness is safety, remember a leaner. Remember the chair by the window. Remember that movement doesn't have to roar to change you. Sometimes it begins with a whisper, a small lift of the knee, a gentle breath drawn deeper than yesterday. A single decision, I will not fade quietly. The body listens when we speak its language again. It answers back not with perfection but with presence. And in that presence, we find life waiting for us, patient and kind, just beyond our hesitation. In the end, a leaner's story isn't about exercise at all, it's about participation. The act of choosing every day to be part of the great rhythm that never stops. Even from a chair, she rejoined the world's quiet dance. And that's what this story is about, not muscles, not medicine, but the moral of motion, the simple, sacred truth that where there is movement, there is life. So keep moving, not to live longer, but to live deeper. Not to escape age, but to meet it with grace. For as long as there is motion in you, the story isn't over.